Hey, you are watching The Curse of Canaan, a demonology of history by Eustace Mullins, and this video is chapter 1, part 2. Now let's just review quickly from the first video. We talked about the usage of the word Arcadian, which is kind of a pastoral setting that's really quaint and nice. And Mullins suggests that most of us dwell in an Arcadian type setting, and we're unable to recognize evil. Why? Because oftentimes it's in disguise, and then we've been conditioned to tolerate evil. And what is the big umbrella under which all this is? Secular humanism. What is the power or the source of the evil? Primarily, it's the Nephilim and all the offshoots of the Nephilim, or the mighty ones. And how do they operate in society today? Basically through the secret societies. And namely, the number one would be Freemasonry, which is in every town, every city in the United States, and is scattered indeed throughout the world in towns and cities. So now we're going to go to part 2 of chapter 1. Now, he does talk about the flood, and that after the flood there is a sin by Ham. But he actually will talk a little bit about a sin on the ark by Ham, which, as far as I know, is not in biblical record. Now, as far as I know, it's not in biblical record. But he cites that there was additional sin by Ham on the ark. Now, what will happen is, after the ark settles in, there will be a curse pronounced upon Ham's son, who is Canaan. Now Noah will curse Canaan because of the evil that was committed through Ham by his son Canaan. Now that's the title of this book, The Curse of Canaan, and Mullins pretty much summarizes it and says that's what's been happening for the last 3,000 years. So he's probably taking a very young view of the earth and of humankind, which I would agree with. At one time I wasn't in that particular viewpoint, but I think I am right now. Now, Mullins will borrow from extra biblical sources and other documents of history, which is good because he's trying to fill in the gaps. Now, where it becomes a little questionable is, can we rely upon these extra biblical sources? And he will say that there was more to the sin of Canaan and Ham than just uncovering the nakedness of Noah. And he will cite that it is possible that Canaan indulged in unnatural relations with his grandfather. Now that's questionable, And Mullins is to be commended for filling in gaps. It's just as you read Mullins, you have to realize that where he fills in the gaps, you may want to have some question marks. Now, I want to read to you a quote by Mullins, which I feel deserves to be read. I'm avoiding reading to you because, first of all, it will put you to sleep, and secondly, nobody will want to watch if I just simply read the book to you. But here's what he says on page 8. The curse of Canaan was extended to the land which was named after him, land of Canaan. The Canaanites themselves, the people of the land, became the greatest curse upon humanity, and so they remain today. Not only did they originate the practices of demon worship, occult rites, child sacrifice, and cannibalism, but they also went abroad. They brought these obscene practices into every land which they entered. Not only did they bring their demonic cult to Egypt, but also known by their latter name, the Phoenicians, as they were called after 1200 BC. They became demonizers of civilization through successive epochs, being known as medieval history as the Venetians, who destroyed the great Byzantine Christian civilization, and later as the black nobility, which infiltrated the nations of Europe and gradually assumed power through trickery, revolution, and financial legerdemain. Sorry on my last word there in the quote. Anyhow, you got the idea that they definitely went out and spread their evil. Now we've got to go from Ham down the line to some other individuals, and one of which is of great notation here. From Ham to Cush, and from Cush to Nimrod. So we see the progression. Now Ham supposedly stole the garments that covered Adam and Eve. Now once again, Mullins is borrowing on extra biblical sources outside the Bible. Are they correct? I'm not going to say for sure they are, and I'm not going to deny that they're correct, not correct. But I'm just going to say we always need to put a question mark if it's not the Bible. So he says that in this literature outside of Holy Scripture that these garments had some type of additional magical power. Now that's questionable, all right? However, I do find that a lot of what Mullins says is very, very good. So he's definitely worth reading. It's just that we need to have some caution here. Now, Nimrod is supposedly born on the 25th of December. And I know there's a lot of folks out there that want to get rid of celebrating Christmas. And I do understand their perspective. However, I'm not in that particular camp or category, and I hope that doesn't offend you or get you upset with me. But he does say that December 25th supposedly is the date of birth of Nimrod. Now, we go from Nimrod to, guess what? The Tower of Babel. Okay, at the Tower of Babel, Nimrod is at his height. In other words, he has organized humanity to rebel against God. And I'm not too certain of all the meaning of the tower. It is assumed it was a ziggurat, and the higher up you go, the more you got in touch with the powers of evil. Mullins will point out that X is the symbol for Nimrod. Now, I just did some videos on I Loathe Lucy, and in particular when she has this dream that she's in Kildoonan and investigating her Scottish ancestry. And they do sword dancing. Now they take the sheath and the sword and form the letter X and put it on the ground and dance around it. Now, I just talked about it in numerology as the number 6, which is true in simple numerology. But, according to Mullins, X is a symbol for Nimrod. And he also mentions when you've seen those shortened versions of Xmas, not Christmas, he says that's basically a reference to Nimrod, not Christ. Now, Nimrod is the first man to rule the earth, according to Mullins. Now, I would place in that category, he's the first representative of Antichrist. In other words, Nimrod was not the Antichrist, but he strongly showed the world who Antichrist is by his actions and what he did. So the Bible will tell us about there is the Antichrist we're waiting for. There have been Antichrist, plural, meaning men who embodied everything that the Antichrist will embody. And then there's the spirit of Antichrist. And it's the two latter that we're facing, the spirit of Antichrist and those who perform as if they're the Antichrist. We're awaiting the Antichrist. Now, Mullins doesn't mention those three things. I do, and I'm giving you that as commentary. Now, another very interesting thing that Mullins will tell us is, and I'm going to have to change my paper here. Very interesting. Those of you that like etymology and words, you take the word Canaan, which is the name of the son of Ham, and then the name of the land, and the name of the individuals who are all offsprings of evil, and then you combine it with Baal or Baal, which is the false god or ruler of this world, or the ancient pagan name for their god. And then you combine those two words and you get cannibalism. And yes, according to Mullins, all of these who are involved with the Canaanites practice cannibalism. Now, let me just interject a word here. There are different levels in secret societies, and those at the lower levels probably do not know these particular rituals. Only those in the higher levels will probably know and understand cannibalism and even human sacrifice at the highest levels. So those who've entered these secret societies at the lower levels, they just see like a club or a brotherhood where you can get away with certain things because you know so-and-so, or you get a discount, or you get extra business because they're a member of the club or secret society. They know nothing of these horrendous Canaanite rituals such as child sacrifice and cannibalism. Now, according to Mullins, who again is borrowing on sources outside the Bible, Shem will behead Nimrod. And he's borrowing on Josephus, the historian. And Josephus is pretty well recognized as a valid source of Roman history and biblical history. So Shem will behead Nimrod. Now, after beheading Nimrod, he will take the pieces of the body of Nimrod and send those pieces out to these various locations where these cults operate. In other words, Shem was trying to send the message: if you continue to practice these practices, you will end up like Nimrod, cut in pieces. Now, what happened was that upon receiving these pieces of his body, the priest and the cult members treated them as treasures. Treasures. They've got a piece of the body of Nimrod. And hence, it kind of backfired. In other words, the cut-up body became almost like a parallel to communion or Lord's Supper, the body of Jesus broken. It's kind of like a parallel to that, but in an evil manner, okay? So a lot of these what are called mystery cults have come out of this. Okay, the mystery cults find their origin in Nimrod. All of them. And one of the ones that appears in biblical times, pre-biblical times, one of the cults that bothered the early church were called Gnostics. Now, why are they called Gnostics? It comes from the Greek word for knowledge. So a Gnostic is someone who has knowledge. They are the knowing ones. And that's what all secret societies are based on. That's what all occult activity is based on: secret knowledge. You have to be initiated. You have to make yourself willing to be part of the cult or the society. Now, Mullins will tell us that there has been a war against the descendants of Shem ever since this day. The descendants of Ham, or the descendants of Canaan, have been extremely angered at the descendants of Shem, because first of all, Shem is the godly line, and the ungodly line comes through the descendants of Ham and Canaan. And the descendants of Canaan have sought to eliminate the descendants of Shem. In other words, genocide, mass murder. You won't find this in the educational system, Mullins makes note. You won't find it at university level, and you will not find it at seminary level or theological schools. So there's always been a war against the godly line. Now, that's easy to see in Genesis. There's two lines, the godly and the ungodly. Very easy to see. It also is sort of brought out by St. Augustine in his work, The City of God, where there's the city of God and the city of man. So it's kind of easy to see, but yet Mullins makes it really, really clear. It's coming from the burning anger of the descendants of Canaan and all their evil ways. They're mad that there's good out there. They're mad that there's holiness out there. And they don't want any parts of it, and they just want their system to rule and reign on this earth. So Paul the Apostle talks about it in a different manner in Ephesians 6, about the spiritual battle and the armor of God. Now, a lot of what you hear is not coming out of the book Eustace Mullins. I'm interjecting some of my own thoughts here, but I am trying my best to use Mullins as a framework. So we're going to go to the next thing, and I need to clear my board. Okay, we're going to talk about what's called the Will of Canaan. Okay, now the Will of Canaan has 5 basic points to it. And this is kind of the document for the Canaanites. We might say this is the document for all evildoers. So if you make the world into 2 groups of people, evildoers and good doers, or unbelievers who love and serve Satan versus believers who love and serve Christ. I know I'm oversimplifying it, and it's not exactly the way Mullins presented it. But I'm going to give you the content of what Mullins said. These are 5 charges or 5 instructions that need to go out to all the descendants of Canaan. And that is, love one another. And I'm going to put in there the club. Now, Mullins doesn't put it that way, but love only the members of the club or the secret society. Now, what else should you love? Robbery. Theft. Stealing. And basically, the entire monetary system that we know, taxes and everything, is basically just theft. Sorry to tell you. I know you're a believer that your tax dollars help repair the roads and all that, and there's just a very, very slight amount of truth there, but for the most part, we're all being openly robbed. And how much are we being robbed? At least 1/3 of your life's earnings. All right, what's the next thing you love? Is lewdness. Now, when I said you, I didn't mean you. I mean, if you're a member of this secret cabal, if you're a member who wants to be a Canaanite and participate in evil. You love anything as perverted or anything that smacks of just open sin, anything that is basically against God and His Word. And then you are to hate something. Who are you to hate? Hate your masters. Hate the people who really want life to be fair and good for everyone. In other words, hate the teacher that insists on the rules in the school. Hate the one who insists on you obeying things so that everything is fair for everyone. Hate your masters. Now, included in that would be the brothers. There was Shem, Ham, and Japheth. So hate Japheth and hate Shem. So if we're going to look at it, just hate your brothers, because the brothers were to be ruling over Ham and his descendants. And then the last thing is, do not speak truth. So, is there a hoax lie system? Absolutely. Is it massive? Absolutely. Now, I remember when I first got into understanding truth, and I first came across the whole idea of being lied to, I only saw it as occasional lies here and there. I knew there were some occasional lies, all right? But I had no idea that it was massive. I had no idea that it's basically everything, all right? And for me, that was the hardest pill to swallow. You know, like the two pills presented in the movie The Matrix. Which pill are you going to swallow? That everything is basically fine and it's an Arcadian existence, right? Back to Mullins. His Arcadian existence, right? That everything is an Arcadian existence with maybe an occasional blotch on the green pasture, or maybe an occasional animal that causes a little commotion? Or is it the land of Canaan with demonic entities controlling our lives and human beings who have pledged themselves to these 5 charges of Canaan, the commissioning of the Canaanites? And basically what we call the controllers, which people call the Illuminati. You can have a number of different terms for them, but basically they are in line with the will of Canaan. They are in line with this document. And that is who we face in the hoax lie system. So I think I'm going to stop right here because I think I have said enough. And once again, I want to reiterate that I'm trying to stay with the book, The Curse of Canaan, by Eustace Mullins. But I do interject my own thoughts. I do interject my own ideas. And sometimes I will question what Mullins says. And at some point in time, I probably am going to just jump right in there and disagree. In fact, I know 1 or 2 spots I need to do that. But for right now, I'd like to end this video and say thank you for watching. And please leave me a comment if this is helpful to you. I'd really like to know. Thank you.